Okay.
Yeah. Which of these books would you tell is the most effective in teaching a grammar rule?
Well, I have to say also that in my case I have studied so many different in so many different places, and a lot of the content overlapped. And because I have already learned some content in one place with one book, it might be a bit hard to say which was more effective, because I already knew some stuff. I have to say that, in my opinion, probably where I learned the most, because it was a more intensive course, was while I was using this book.
Yeah.
But also, as mentioned, it was also probably because of the structure of the whole course.
Okay.
And but definitely, for example, this is a book that I couldn't use for self-study. Without a lot of guidance, I couldn't use this book a lot. While, for example, with this book, I could easily go through a particular subject and vocabulary and structures without so much guidance.
Yeah.
And if I recall correctly, probably this book I use mostly for some exercises. And actually, if I recall correctly, I think this comes together with an exercise book. Yeah. So maybe also here you can check the content. Yeah, that is a positive thing, probably, that you don't take away all the clarity. But probably regarding content for self-study would be this better. And then with assisted. This one covers a lot. I think that the content that I saw with this was covered with several of the other books. Yeah.
So if you can give me 3 words to describe effectiveness.
Effectiveness regarding content or
the use. How effective is it, the teaching in that?
Yeah.
The way they displayed information for you to understand and use.
Yeah, well, effectiveness, let me see 3 words. I would say, again, it's hard to, I would think about when effectiveness in this, that examples, but I don't know if that's a word, the kind of word you are looking for. But for me, effective way for learning is by being able to see examples, applications of something. And then again, these summaries.
Yes.
I think that helps for the effectiveness. If I only see some rules but not a summary, the summary I can check it 30 times.
Yeah.
And I can always come back to that to remind, and also the examples already give me. And then third thing for effectiveness, what could be? Well, also, for example, the use of figures, like illustrations, could be also probably visual synthesis. That's because I'm going to the illustrations, tables, and examples.
Okay.
Those 3 probably
Visual synthesis
are the
sounds
things.
good.
Yeah.
Do you think any of these books can habilitate you for using Finnish outside classroom?
Well, to what I recall, I think most of these books cover very little spoken language. Mostly they focus on written language. So I would say that was kind of one of the frustrating things, that one learns something and some vocabulary, but they don't go in detail into the everyday spoken language. And in my opinion, it doesn't come to my mind that any of this would have a more developed spoken or practical part. Yeah, in first instance, I would say that none of this fulfills that need, or at least effectively. I think I did get occasionally, maybe while taking this course, I recall professor providing at least a lot of examples of puhekieltä, but maybe they were not part of the book. Probably they were added in the board. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that's something that you have to copy down on your own.
Yes, I remember. I had to write down. And
that's
then
interesting about speech, like just write it down and memorize.
Yeah, and then also maybe could be that maybe some of these books had some spoken material, like recordings.
Yeah.
Where maybe it was possible that there was some actual puhekieltä, even though the text might have written language. Like maybe transcriptions, I don't know if they were completely accurate, yes. And maybe actually, I remember that it was like the teacher's job to mention that, did you notice they didn't mention, like the word here it says that, but actually the person said that, and then the professor maybe wrote the what it would be the puhekieltä, but it was not like literally transcribed. Yeah.
Okay, so we can move to social representations. That means we're going to concentrate on images. How important do you think images in language books are, and why?
Well, I think they could be really handy, probably especially a bit more at the beginning, or with some, it depends on the subject definitely, but for example, when learning vocabulary, it's highly effective. Then when trying to communicate a new rule that differs a lot from other languages. For example, whenever there's I'm so bad at remembering the names of this, but I think like kind of, is it like ilativi? For example, that it's that something is here, in here, over here, or on the left, in general, like, or going to there, or coming from somewhere. And I remember it was, for example, when referring to things that are inside a place, or just in a place that it's like not a closed space. And illustrations help to communicate those differences. Yes, I think that especially there. And also probably I have been maybe privileged in a way that I've been studying Finnish in Finland, and I think it's way easier sometimes to go through the content when you have already seen how the culture is, a bit like the weather and the traditions.
You mean to have previous experience?
Yeah, like the previous experience somehow gives you already a better understanding of why the text and the language used is what it says there, exactly. But I presume that, like for example, coming from Mexico, and if you are just studying the language and have no idea, you haven't been in Finland, many of the phrases could be absurd unless there is a preface about that explains a bit more about Finnish culture. Okay. Yes. So I think that it's actually nice when I like the fact of having pictures depicting like the Finnish landscape, the Finnish like everyday situation. That's why also I find it nicer when starting a new subject, things like this with pictures than like this, where
schematic.
Yeah, like of course this is a bit more standard probably in almost any language book you could have this kind of basic pictures for the verbs, which is nice also. I think it's nice to have the picture. Is maybe easier to memorize and then do exercises, but it doesn't give a bigger overview about the culture. When you get into more elaborated subjects, it's nice to have a better overview of what it's spoken to understand.
Or what you see on the streets.
Exactly.
Do you think Finnish society is accurately represented in these books?
Well, I don't know. As mentioned, probably there's some things that are somehow closer. You see, like I mentioned, in this one there's less actual representation of the culture. In this one, images help a lot, and I believe they try to also not only communicate the language but also part of the